Welcome to the PostalMate webinar, Accelerate Your Holiday Profits in PostalMate 2024. My name is Karen Grant and I'll be your instructor today. We're going to get rolling. Here we go. All right. Oh, and I have a new feature. Now it's not, don't get all excited. It's a good feature and it's a needed feature, but it's not like the last feature, which was amazing. But this is a good one, so you'll want to hang on to it for this. All right. Holiday computers, please get these set up in the next week. Let me tell you how this works. You have old computers and you bring them out once a year for Christmas and they're on a really old version of PostalMate. You are responsible for uninstalling the old version of PostalMate or updating it. If you uninstall the old one and install the new version and then network it, that's your entire responsibility. We can assist with the re-networking if we can. The networks are your responsibility, but if you need some assistance, we can guide you. But we cannot uninstall for you. We cannot reinstall for you. Those are all your responsibilities. If you need help getting it in your network and getting your label printers hooked up and all that, the time to do that is before Thanksgiving. And here's what we do in support. After Thanksgiving, you're the last in the list to get a call if you need help setting up an auxiliary computer. And that's because at that point forward, we're concentrating on helping stores ship. So our focus is you making money. So don't delay in this. Don't procrastinate and then be in a bad situation. So if you have additional computers, you need to get hooked up. Get hooked up. We did release a new update last night. It's 14.2.2. It is an excellent update. It fixes a few really important things. It adds this new feature you're going to see at the end of the webinar, and is very, very solid. We tested it for a good long time before we released it because we were waiting on a carrier to get some information back to us, and they delayed and delayed and delayed. Well, all that delaying allowed us to continue to test it. So we know it's a really, really good update. We have probably about 1,000 stores that are updated now. This morning we've had virtually no issues whatsoever. So updating computers, updating software is your responsibility. We don't update software for you. If you're brand new and you've never done an update, we will guide you through the first time, but after that, it is your responsibility. Okay, let's talk. We're going to be all over the board here because this whole holiday webinar is reminding you of all the different little things you might forget for the holidays, and you need those reminders. So that's what we're focusing on. So the first one is insurance, declared value coverage. We have so many new stores. We probably have, when I say new stores, not just new stores, but new store owners of existing stores. We probably have almost 600 from the last year that haven't gone through a Christmas yet. And that's mind-boggling when you think about how small our community is. So declared value coverage, make sure that you review the limitations and prohibitions. Just because your customer wants something covered doesn't mean that you technically can. If you cover something, if somebody brings something in and you accept money for declared value coverage or insurance on that, and it is prohibited or restricted in the guidelines, and that thing gets lost or damaged, that comes out of your pocket. Carrier's not going to pay for it. The insurance company's not going to pay for it, whether it's alternate insurance or carrier insurance. So that's on you. Now, having said that, I'm going to remind you all is now a really good time to contact your business insurance company and make sure that you have a rider on your business insurance policy called E&O. That stands for errors and omissions. And that would cover you up to, usually it's a $10,000 rider. That would cover you in case you make a mistake and accept insurance for something like that. So that will cover the errors and omissions, basically covers for you for all of your in-house mistakes that are honestly made. So it's a really good rider to have. Most insurance policies do not include it. You have to ask for it. So it's called errors and omissions, E&O. Your insurance company will know what it is. Remember that paper and dollar equivalents are not usually insurable. That means no checks, no gift cards, no cashier's checks, no bonds and stocks, no basic written checks or money orders. That is not insurable except for the paper value of it. Paper value is about $7.50 to replace that, or at best. I mean, you might get a $10. They're not going to cover for the value of it. I had a store owner call a couple weeks ago. They had a $44,000 check they were trying to insure. I put my foot down and said, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. And can you imagine if that got lost, he would be liable for that 44,000 because he would have taken the insurance money for it. So in most courts, he's going to lose, even though it was not insurable. So paper items, no money, do not send money. And if you do, it's not insured. So if somebody wants to put $100 in a gift card or in a gift a greeting card, that's fine, but it's not insured and you didn't see it. You didn't see it. Even if you saw it, you didn't see it. Get it? Okay. Art, jewelry, and one-of-a-kind items. Those kinds of things may not be covered or may have limitations on them by both the carrier and or an alternate insurance. It's up to you to know what those limitations are before you accept any insurance or declared value coverage money on those. And bear in mind, if you use an alternate insurance, there are some countries that may not insurance may not be able to be covered for. So know the limitations of your alternate insurance. If you're using carrier insurance, they will, and that's called declared value coverage, they will cover all the places that they go to. So they don't restrict by country, but they do restrict by item. Envelopes, for example, like letter envelopes, next day envelope type things, when you send them internationally or domestically, you're only able to insure those for $500. And because most carriers require it be paper only, it would be very iffy if you could actually get $500. Okay, time in transit, things to know in PostalMate. Okay, so here's the first one. Carriers generally suspend any guarantees that they have for time in transit for December, for at least half of December. So that means it's going to say on PostalMate that it's going to get there on, Monday the 23rd, but if it doesn't, there's no money back for you. So don't guarantee that to your customers. You need to make sure that you don't, I really caution, don't guarantee things. It should be there, it is estimated to be there, et cetera, et cetera. Make sure that you add that information to your receipt disclaimer. Every PostMate receipt has a disclaimer space, and it will only print a disclaimer if there's a shipment on it. So if you do 20 copies, that disclaimer doesn't appear. But if you do a shipment and 20 copies, that disclaimer will be there. And you can write in there what you want, blah, 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 and make sure you add in there times are estimates only and not guaranteed. And so this is where it is in PostMate. If you want help, it's in, and by the way, get your cell phone camera out if you don't want to watch the whole webinar, because I don't blame you, I wouldn't, and take pictures of anything that's of interest to you that has directions. So this is in CashMate, Tools, Register Settings, Receipt Layout, and that's where you're going to find the shipping disclaimer, and it's right there in that middle area. Okay. Next, post signs with your guarantee policies. And just a recommendation to you, but when I walk into a store and do a site visit and there's all kinds of signs and they're ratty and torn and taped to a wall, that's really, really lowers the look of your store. Always have some extra cheap frames, just Walmart frames, and pop it in a frame and pop it on your wall. UPS, FedEx, and DHL will deliver until the truck is empty, and empty in quotes because, of course, they have undeliverable things that they'll take back to the hub, but they're not allowed to come back to the hub until they've made an attempt for every package on the truck in the day. So that's why during the Christmas, you will see in your neighborhoods, many of them, UPS, FedEx, out in the neighborhoods at 11:30 and midnight. I mean, they will still be out there delivering. So when they mean end of day, they actually mean until their truck is empty, whatever time that is. And that is, they are really good about that. International time in transit. This is really important. So in PostalMate, when you're doing an international shipment for UPS, FedEx, or DHL, there's a time in transit that is given. That time in transit is for non-dutiable, because at the point that it's giving you that time in transit, it doesn't know, you haven't selected whether it's goods or documents yet. So it's giving you the best time available, and it's for non-dutiable documents, basically. So that is true, whatever it says would be true for that situation. But if you've got a box and it's a Christmas gifts and it's got toys and whatever gifts in it, that's not going to be the time in transit that you quote that's on the screen is not going to be accurate for that box. And in fact, PostalMate tells you that every single time when you select goods. So next time you do an international shipment and you're on the page that you select documents or goods and you select goods, take a look at it. Big, bright red letters come up, and it's been there for 20 years telling you that the time in transit that was given on the previous screen may not be accurate for goods. So make sure that you always tell your customer that it should get there on Tuesday the 23rd pending customs. And that gives you the whole leeway thing that if there's a hiccups, now it could still get there in that time. They're going to try to get it on that time. But pending customs gives you that leeway that you're going to need on those international shipments. So some indicia things to know. This is important. Indicia has started, we noticed about 3 weeks ago, second week of October, I believe. So almost 4 weeks ago. Indicia has started to enforce the shape-based rules for first-class letters and envelopes. So if you're doing a full label, a 4x6 label for a first-class letter or first-class flat envelope, like a manila envelope, they are now enforcing the dimensions that you put in there have to correlate with the actual rules. So you're going to put in rules like we have here, and it's that last number or that height that they're looking for. And for a letter, it can be no more than 0.25. And for the flat, it can be no more than 0.75. Now, the other two dimensions matter too, but those aren't the ones that usually get you into trouble. It's usually that last one, and it's the height one. And so a certified letter, any kinds of thing like that is you're going to have to put the dimensions in. PostalMate will accept anything that is 0.1 or up. 0.1. When you're entering the dimensions on this screen, I will totally confess to you that it does not always take that decimal point when you first put it in. So you go 0.25 and it ends up 25. Then you have to back it up and put 0.25, and then it'll take it the second time. I don't know why. I will one day have us look at that, but just know that to make sure that you get that point in there. So that's really important, and that affects everybody. This is for those of you who use Indicia. This is a recommendation only. Indicia has a program called GAP, and they have another program, an actual company they own called Global Post. And frequently, when you run a package in PostalMate, they will substitute or maneuver your package to these two companies, or programs. So the GAP is a program, Global Advantage program, and Global Post is one of their companies. So Indicia is owned by a company named Octane. They own Indicia, Stamps.com, Global Post, ShipStation, a whole bunch of things. And they have some in-house programs where they make more money on it. So by taking your label, I'm going to do a priority mail to New Jersey, and I might get a label that says, oh no, this would be on international, I think only. I think it's primarily international. So let's just say I'm doing it to England, to the United Kingdom, we'd have to say, to the United Kingdom. And I would get a label and it would say it's going to New Jersey to a postal processing facility. That's the GAP program. Or I might get a label that says, discreetly says, Global Post. So these programs you do not have to participate in. They are on by default. When you get an Indicia account, they include it. So whether you want it or not, it's there. But you don't have to have it on. It can affect both the tracking and the route of your shipment. Once it goes to that global processing facility, then they relabel it for going to the United Kingdom and it goes off. They basically handle some of the brokerage on it or the customs on it, and they get a fee from back-end kickback from the post office on this. So if you don't want this, you can have Indicia take this off of your account. There's no benefit to you. And the address is confusing. So if your customer sees is sending to the United Kingdom and sees an address going to New Jersey, they're going to scratch their head and go, that's not right. Additionally, they won't be able to track their package right away because the tracking number you provide is a post office tracking number, and what goes on it is a GAP or a Global Post tracking number. And so until it's relabeled, the tracking won't work. So it's really kind of, in our industry, it's really not a good thing. If we were doing fulfillment, in a warehouse, I can see it would be a lower cost. Maybe we'd do a rev share with them or something and get a better cost on it, and that would be effective. But in the resale industry, there's no benefit for you. So you can contact Indicia. Now, if you want this to remove, you need to ask for both the GAP and global posts to be removed. The person you talk to at Indicia is my guest, and they hate me telling you this because they're making money on this, but I'm doing it because I think it's best for you in the industry. Whoever you talk to is probably going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know that we do that, or I don't think we do that, or I don't think we have the ability to do that. You probably will have to escalate it. They make it difficult on purpose. So if that's something you don't want, then you will need to have Indicia remove it from your account. How long does priority mail take? So I have always gone round and round and round with store owners and other people about how long priority mail takes. So in PostalMate, and I'm going to show you, but in PostalMate, we do not get fed time in transit for a few carriers. We do not get fed time in transit for IPS, for USPS, and for some others. And when we don't get fed that information, we allow you to set your own information in there in the time in transit. So you get to do it. Now, if you do enter what the post office says, they say priority mail takes 1 to 3 days. Here's my problem with that. If it takes 1 to 3 days and you tell your customer 1 to 3 days and that's what they're expecting, what happens if it takes 5 days? Who are they going to blame? It's not going to be the post office. It's going to be the person that sold them on that because they were counting on 1 to 3 days and it took 5 days. Now they paid a premium and came to you and it didn't get there. And here's what they're going to think, because they just do. Well, they probably didn't give it to the post office that day. They probably held on to it for a couple of days. Garbage like that does happen. And we're looking for the best customer experience so that you have repeat business all the time. So my recommendation to you is that you don't use 1 to 3 days just because the post office says so. Give yourself a buffer. These are 2 recent shipments, and I know this is too small to see. I don't expect you to see it. These are 2 recent shipments that I experienced. One in November, so one just a week ago or so, and one just a couple weeks ago. So the first one, let's see here, started in Pennsylvania. So Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania was when somebody put it in the postal stream. I'm in Gilbert, Arizona, so just outside of Phoenix, big suburb, 250,000 people in a suburb of a metro city of like 5.5 million, 6 million, whatever we are. So not really hard to find us, right? So it was going, and it got delivered about a week later. And there was a holiday in there, but it took a week for priority mail. But here's why. My package that I got finally had more fun than I did because it took a detour right there and went to Honolulu, Hawaii. Now, why you would go from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to Honolulu back to the Phoenix area is beyond me, but it had a lot more fun than I did on that trip. So I thought, well, that's a one-off. And by golly, except the week before, I had had another one. And this package was Salt Lake City. Now, if you look at your map, Salt Lake City is straight north of the Phoenix metro area, 500 miles, easy trip down the road, right? So it went October 19th. It was delivered October 28th. So we're talking 9 days later because it took a detour to Massachusetts. Again, all these things can happen. And this is just my experience in the last 4 weeks, 3 weeks. So I want you to be prepared. I don't want you to overstate post office times in transit when you're entering this information. Buffer yourself, give yourself some room so that your customer is not unhappy. More importantly, if you tell your customer whatever it is, but let's just go by this, 2 to 9 days, and it goes somewhere in there, that's also going to encourage them maybe to use a different service that you have a better margin on and can make more money on, but has a more of a date definite. Even though they're not guaranteed either through the holidays, they are much more date definite than the post office. So how do you do that? Here's an example of how I would put it on my screen. So you can see all these are post office services, and I've got different words in here kind of fitting in what I want to remind me about and what I want to remind my employees about. So for example, on the letter, the first class letter and flat, it reminds me that it has to fit the size restrictions. It reminds me to be careful about putting in the right sizes, right? And then the others, it's really encouraging, like media mail. It reminds me that it has to be educational material only. And if your customer can see your screen or you share your screen with your customer, then they're going to be able to see these things. And believe me, they're going to believe it because it's what the screen says more than because what you say. We always believe more what's in writing. They don't know that you wrote it. They just are going to believe it because it's in writing. And then you might want to notice here, let's see, this is only available for USPS, IPS too, but let's just go with USPS. And then here's the instructions for it. Again, take your cell phone out and take a picture. So if you want to go customize this, you can. Yeah, that's a cell phone in the upper left corner. I struggled finding a cell phone picture that looked like a cell phone, but that's what that is. And then a camera. Um, and then down at the bottom, you might notice I have not available for two services, and it's both has the CR, which is cubic rates. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but I do not recommend you ever sell cubic rates. And in fact, in my sample store, you can see that I have marked cubic rates up to an astronomical fee so that I won't accidentally sell it. If you don't know why, you need to watch the recorded webinar about cubic rates. I'm not going to go through that in this, but if you are selling cubic rates, you are probably losing money. Okay. Preparing your store. But first, we're going to take a quick poll. For many of you, you know that we take a poll and ask you about certain things when we're looking at different things for PostalMate's future. So I'm going to take a quick poll here. And I would like as many of you as you can participate. And be careful, this is talking about on an annual year. So the poll is, how many freight shipments do you ship in a full year? So how many freight shipments do you normally ship in a year? And please, please, please take participate in this. It will really, really help some things that we're looking at for the future. And then I'm not going to stick on this, so vote, 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 vote. Closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I will share with you what it is if I can get there. There we go. So that you can see too. So there we go. And you should be able to see those results. And for whatever reason, I can't see because I have things in my way. There they are. So 57% of you, none. So really, it's a minority of you that do quite a bit. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. All right. So now we're going to get back, and we should be back to our regular screen now, hopefully. Preparing your store, things to know. Come on, click, click. There we go. This is the coolest report, but we really only need this report kind of once a year, and it's at December. It's called the Time Activity Report. And it will, if you were open last Christmas, it will tell you by the hour how much business you did on every single day in December so that it can help you with staffing, help you to know when to expect the rush, et cetera, et cetera. I used this endlessly when I had my stores because it really helped me for preparation and staffing, also for purchasing. I know that XYZ, that these 5 days are my busiest days, and I don't want to receive shipments of cardboard and peanuts on those days. I want to already have them in stock by those days, et cetera, et cetera. So you're going to want to pull this. This is in CashMate. And by the way, if your store happened to be open in 2019, Christmas this year falls on a Wednesday. It also fell on a Wednesday in 2019, so it'll be the same, a similar pattern, except that I failed to look at one thing, and that was when Thanksgiving was that year. It may have also been the last week in November, but it may not have been. So that is going to be a factor in what our holiday season is like this year. We have what's called a short shopping season this year because Thanksgiving was a week later than we typically see it, but also compounded because Christmas is on a Wednesday. That means Christmas Eve is on a Tuesday. People are still buying things that weekend, the Saturday before Christmas, thinking they're going to be able to get it there because Christmas isn't until Wednesday, when they find out that really, if they come in on Monday, they have to overnight it, and they're not going to want to do that. So that can be problematic. So we really need to encourage our customers to get all of their shipments out by the week before, and that makes us have a very squished and compact shipping season. The negative of that is we typically, as a whole, ship less because people have less time to shop. They buy less things, therefore they ship less things. So that's the downside to this compact. The other side, and this is not necessarily a downside, but it's an interesting side, is on your busiest days, you will be much busier than when we have a bigger shopping and shipping season. So the month, we expect it to look something like this. And where your busiest days are, expect that to be the 16th and 17th, followed very closely by the 9th and 10th. So those are your heavy, heavy days. And really, heavy days typically are about 10 days, sometimes 12 or 14 days, but right in there. And people always ask, do I need to be open on Sunday? Here's the thing, your customers don't expect you, unless you're open now, your customers don't expect you to be open on Sunday. So if you are open on Sunday, you won't be terribly busy, but you might, if you notify people, you might get some that come in, and that would lighten the load slightly on Monday. I will tell you, as a former store owner, you deserve that day of rest. A lot of times you need that one day to catch your breath. Do you need to be open extended hours on Saturday? Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you're normally open for a half day on Saturday, you should at least 8 to 5, 9 to 6. You should at least be open double time on Saturday if you're typically a half day. Starting basically the 7th. The 7th is the first day, Saturday, I would be open. Mind you, I am ultra, ultra thrifty when it comes to costs and stuff. You could do it Thanksgiving weekend, but history shows that customers are more interested in shopping that weekend, and then they'll ship afterwards. So they got to shop first, and Thanksgiving weekend is typically for shopping. Hopefully this will help you. Some international shipping, and I do see the questions coming in, and we will get to the questions. So go ahead and keep typing them in, and we will get to them. International shipping things to know. For all international addresses in PostalMate, your customer, the return address will be your customer. We did have a little glitch in 14.2.1 for a while where UPS was had your store as your customer. That's corrected in 14.2.2. As I said, 14.2.2 is a really solid update. Came out yesterday. You absolutely should update before Christmas because it has some important fixes that you want. Carriers can still bill your stores for customs and duties. They usually don't. They usually will bill the receiver first and then go for the sender, but they always have the option of billing your store. There's never a complete out on that. The best carrier for not billing your store other than post office would be DHL. UPS and FedEx can always and sometimes do. We see it, and we've seen it recently. Come back and bill your store. And the DHL, the return address, that's the customer that's standing in front of you that's sending it. Their return address must be deliverable by DHL. So if you live somewhere fairly remote where DHL doesn't service all of your county or all of your area, or if your customer comes from the middle of Montana where there is no DHL service and they give you that address as a return address, you won't get a label. Because if DHL has to return it, they return it to the return address and they don't deliver there. So in that case, you need to ask your customer, try not to use the store because it makes you just more liable for things. You need to ask your customer if they have a friend or family member that lives in a city that you could use that address as a return address. And then all addresses, both from and to, so both your customer's address and the ship to address must have a 10-digit phone number. Carriers are starting to refuse labels if you don't have both a phone number in both the from and the to. All right, harmonized codes are required for EU, Norway, and Switzerland. It's fine, perfectly normal to put them on all your outgoing packages, and why not now that we have the new suggest feature. And just so you know, harmonized codes, tariff numbers, all the same thing, just different words. It's called the HTS, Harmonized Tariff System, and that's why there's so many different words involved. Okay, some more information on international. Some countries require at least $1 in customs value. On declared value, you would still enter 0, but on customs value, Some countries, even on documents, will require a dollar. So if you get an error back and it says anything about value, that's probably it. If a postal code is required and you can't find one, and mind you that most countries have them, but not all countries use them, right? So if you have a country, and I'm going to pick country Timbuktu because I can't think of one right now, and your customer swears there's no postal code, try entering 6 zeros and seeing if that will work. Occasionally that will work. It's kind of random and I don't have a list, but we've seen that work. DHL on address line 2. So you have address line 1 and address line 2. And address line 1, we usually like to do 123 East Main Street. Address line 2, we often do Suite 238. Well, the address line 2 on international shipments for DHL, you need to leave that completely blank unless you found specific information on dct.dhl.com, such as a suburb. It's usually a suburb or a neighborhood. That's what they want in that spot. Otherwise, leave it completely blank, or it will usually get rejected by DHL. DHL addresses are really picky. Always select the parent country. So this isn't just true with the United Kingdom, it's true with a lot of things. So a lot of times you'll see there may be an island that's attached to a bigger country. And so you have to know the governing country and list that instead of the actual island. And so with UK, it's easy. For example, you never list England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. You always put United Kingdom, unless it happens to be the Republic of Ireland, which is a completely different country. And then for APO, FPO, DPO shipments, this is particularly for our newbies. Those shipments always have to be through post office. That's the only carrier that can ship to an APO, FPO, DPO. And you will select USA as the destination, even if the soldier or the service person is serving overseas. You will select USA as the destination. You will get a label, and it's a USPS label, and it's a domestic label, but it will also require the appropriate customs forms. PostalMate knows what to do. Trust the system. Always select you if they're serving in Kuwait, if they're serving in Germany. I don't care where they are. You will select USA. Okay. Oh, watch out for these. Don't send anything you put in your mouth, okay, internationally. So that would be food products, candy, chocolates, prescription medications, non-prescription medications, vitamins, all those things can end up in trouble going through customs. At least if you're going to send anything that goes in your mouth, look it up and make sure that you're allowed to send it. Any currency or related to currency, again, that's that gift cards, dollars, checks, cashier's checks, money orders, all those kinds of things. Internationally, just don't send them. Used items, clothing, or personal effects. This is country by country, but most countries will not accept used clothing. Sometimes they will accept it if you specify it's personal effects, but you have to look it up to know. Postmate's not going to tell you anything about the contents involved. That's up to you as the professional. Anything high value. So if the value of your contents on an international shipment is $2,500 or higher, it may require an EEI. An EEI is not a form. An EEI is a filing, electronic, okay, I just lost it. And that has to be done by either you or the carrier. You can hire the carrier to do that for you. They charge you like $12 or $13, well worth it. Or you can become an expert and get an account and file the EEI for your shipments. We have a few stores that actually do that on their own. But most stores will have the carrier do it. This package will have to be processed directly at the carrier website, though. You will not be able to get a label through PostalMate if PostalMate believes that an EEI may be required. Technology to China, Hong Kong, don't send it, can't do it. No, even if it was made there, no cell phones, no computers. If it has a computer chip, basically almost if it plugs in, the answer is no, or it has a battery, the answer is no. Any weapons, that seems like a duh statement, but don't send weapons anywhere. And if you're not sure, look it up. You really, really need to look it up. And then the last one is don't lie too much. And I'm not telling you it's okay to lie. Don't lie too much to customs. And here's what I'm getting at with lying to customs. We have to put down the value of things. If you've got somebody that comes in and it's an eBay sell and they're sending something to country named Timbuktu, and they say, what if you say, what's inside? Oh, it's a laptop. All right, and how much is it worth? $10. No, no, that's a lie. That's a lie. They're not going to spend $300 or $200 to send a $10 laptop. You can't lie like that. But if it's a pair of blue jeans, I don't know if that pair of blue jeans, it's a $30 pair from Walmart or a $200 pair from Nordstrom. So in other words, be reasonable. Don't let your customer get away with lying through their teeth. Just don't do it. Problems with international addresses. So we get a lot of calls, actually every single day, from stores that are trying to ship international and they can't get a label, and they think it's PostalMate's fault, but it's not. It's the carriers, and they're getting very restrictive on the addressing. So it's your responsibility to figure it out, not ours. Our job is to create good software that functions properly. Your job is to go with the flow and learn whatever the carrier wants you to learn on this stuff. But I want to help you. You can't be out there on your own doing this. So here's some helps for you. Google the address. If you can't get a label, Google the address. See if Google knows that address. If it doesn't, well, then pull up Google Maps and try to find it on a map. And if you can't find it on a map, how do you expect the carrier to find it in a truck? So you need to be able to find it on a map. And often you will get information on an international address that is either more information or not enough information about the address. Usually it's more. Usually there'll be 2 or 3 place names and you don't know what name is the actual city in that country. So look up that place name. Go to Wikipedia, go to Google, figure it out. See if that place name is part of a larger town. Frequently, your customer will bring in stuff and it'll have a place name that's a suburb or a neighborhood or a borough or something like that. And that's not what they want. If you're sending to Manhattan in New York, you don't put the town as Manhattan, you put the town as New York City. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about here. Or the Upper East Side, because I'm fancy and I live in the Upper East Side. You don't put that as the city. You put that, you could list it, but I would list it manually. And by the way, if your customer says, oh, but it has to have this on it or it has to have that on it, get what you have to get the label. You can take a pen afterwards and write anything else on the label you want, okay? But make sure that you just get the information needed to get that label, because sometimes the carrier won't want all the other stuff that your customer wants. And if your customer is absolutely insistent, give them a blank label. Let them write out the address any way they want. They can even write it in the foreign language. If it has a different alphabet, like Asian or Russian or something, they can write it and then you can slap it on the package next to it. That's fine. And then make sure that the spelling matches. Every once in a while, well, it actually happens fairly often, probably a couple of times a month, we'll get a store that, I know this town, it's, Frankfurt, Germany, and they misspelled Frankfurt or something. So usually it's a name harder than that. I always struggle with Albuquerque, which isn't foreign, but it should be, and spelling that one. So you get the idea. All right, and then try these things before calling support, because these are the things we're going to do. And so you will cut down on time if you go through these things first and see if you can maybe go through a process of elimination and figure it out. During the holidays, we do expect address issues to take a lot of our time. And so there will be a long wait for getting that call back on an international address. If you have a customer that's customer waiting and the customer's not going to leave without that, you can tell us customer waiting when you contact us. I will absolutely swear to you that if you email us all the information, it's going to be quicker than a voicemail, because we're not going to have time to listen to voicemails all the time right as they come in. Sometimes it has to wait 30 minutes before we can get to the voicemails because we're all on calls. So just bear in mind that a voicemail, but we can be on a call with somebody, maybe helping them with an update or helping them with something, and watching the emails and reading them as they come through, and we can usually fire something back pretty quickly. So emails are better than calls almost always. And then here's, again, you might want to get your camera out. I'm going to give you some ideas here. If you're having an address issue with DHL, this is the website you want to use. This gives you all the hints you need for about, I want to say about 60% of DHL address problems are solved by this website, dct.dhl.com. And DCT stands for DHL Compatibility Tool. Go figure. But that's the one you need. The next help is for APO, FPO, DPOs. You need to know that there are restrictions to each service person where depending on where they're stationed. So if, for example, if I have a box of chocolates, I may not be able to send it if they're stationed in Germany, or I may not be able, if it's a gift box and it has pork rinds, I can't send it to a soldier in Kuwait. Or if I have a whole bunch of things and it's in a big box, it's a 16 by 16 by 16 cube, I can't send it to a service person who's on a submarine because they won't allow those big boxes on a submarine. So you need to look up the restrictions, and that's the website. So take a picture of this, go to your computer after the webinar, look these up, and then bookmark these places so that you have easy access to them through the holidays. And the last one is my favorite one. This is a USPS website, and it's if you're wondering if the contents are allowed into that country, don't guess. Don't just think that because it's going to Italy and we're friends with Italy that you can get pretty much anything reasonable in. It's not that easy. If you saw the list of things that you can't get into Italy, your eyebrows would go up. Like, for example, you cannot send a toy to Italy unless it's made completely 100% of wood. So a Matchbox or a Hot Wheels, nope, can't do it. A dolly, nope, can't do it. A Barbie doll, nope, can't do it. Has to be made, you have to have a Barbie doll made completely of wood. Of course, it doesn't exist, but you get the idea. So you need, that's your responsibility as a professional shipper to look these things up before you ship that package. Now, I'll say in this webinar what I said in others, and that is when your customer's standing there, you're not going to have time to do this because you're going to have 3 people behind them every single time you do an international. So here's what you do. Customer, I have your phone number here. Is that your cell phone where you'd be available today? Why, yes, it is. Well, I have some more work to do on this. I'm going to check the contents against and make sure that everything looks like it's acceptable to that country. If you don't hear from me today, awesome. You can track it beginning late tonight. But if I have a question about any of the contents, I will give you a call before this ships out today. Oh, okay. Thanks very much. And that way you're off the hook when you have a lull later on or your helper comes in or whatever. Make sure you take the time, set a timer if you have to, but make sure you take the time to look those things up. And that's how you handle that. All right. Now, one of the reasons we came to this webinar is to increase our profits, right? So here we're going to talk about how to increase our profits. And before we get started in that, I'm going to talk directly to our Annex brand stores. We have a lot of Annex brand stores. We do recommend that you use the recommended pricing by Annex brands. It's available in your PostalMate. If you have any pricing questions about anything I say, whether it's something you should do or something, listen to your franchise first and me second, okay? That is my recommendation to you. Your home office is anxious to talk to you and will be of great help. Having said that, let's move on to the difference between markups and margins, because we're going to talk about setting your prices a little bit and how to make a little bit of an increase for the holidays. And so just so you understand that markups and margins are relational, but they're not proportional. In other words, if one goes up 5, the other doesn't go up 5. So you can see here, we typically in shipping talk about margins, and we typically in supplies and things we sell across the counter talk about markups. So a margin is the percentage that your customer pays that is profit. So if they buy a shipment that costs them $100 and you have a 60% margin, 60% of 100 is $60. $60 is gross profit to you, $40 gets paid to the carrier. Okay, that's how margin works. Markup is when you're selling things. I have a cardboard box. I'm going to sell it for 75% margin, which is a 300% markup. So that would be 4 times the cost. So it costs me $1. I'm going to charge at least 4 times that. So that would be $4. That's not what I necessarily recommend for that, but that's how the markup works. This was 300% plus the original cost. Okay, so that's how you get it. So the markup is the percent of the cost when added to the cost becomes the new retail price. So I sell a candle in my store, it costs me $5. I'm going to keystone it, which is doubling it, charge 100% markup. So that means I'm going to multiply that $5. Did I say $5? $5 by 2, that's $10. So I'm going to retail it for $10. So $5 is profit, $5 to the candle company. So that's easy peasy. So we have the basics here. Most of you know that, but this is just a reminder. So we're going to get into where I'm going to recommend if you want to increase your prices for the holidays, the easiest place to do it this year. And it's getting more and more complicated because the carriers are kind of taking away the easy ways. So this one is in the surcharges. And this is not across the board, but this is just a help. So typically in a store, an average store is going to have their surcharges set at about a 33% margin here. Now that's an average store. That's not a great store. That's an average store. We're going to talk about a great store also. So this would be for UPS, FedEx, DHL, even the post office, a 33% margin across the board. You might have a cap on oversize of like, I don't know, $60, meaning if there's an oversized charge of $200, I don't want to have a 33% margin because that would make that charge $450, and I think my customer would their head would explode at a $450 surcharge. So I'm going to charge that 33% margin up to $60, and so that it would stop at 60. So that's what that is about. And the only time you would want a profit cap really is for that oversized charge, because that's where they get astronomical in price. So this, like I said, is an average store. So let's talk about this field right here. This is an extra field, and this is where I recommend that you add like an extra $1 or 2 or 3 or 4. Just on each of these surcharges. It is just going to apply when the surcharge applies, it's going to pop in an extra $1 for you. And you can do it different amounts on different ones if you want. And then after Christmas, you can come back in here and make them all zeros if you want. So this is how to make some extra Christmas money. So this is your Christmas bonus. This happens to be $1 per surcharge. Here's a higher store, a store that does better. And this is typically as high as we would see the surcharges, which would be a 50% margin. This is basically doubling. If the surcharge for you is $7.50, you would be charging your customer $15. Plus, we've added, in this case, a $2 Christmas bonus. So now we would charge $17 for that. So in our stores that do a little bit better or are in a higher end area, are able to charge a little bit higher prices, we would see more things closer to the right. An average store would be closer to the left. And if you're less than the average store on the left, I would really think that you might want to reevaluate your business plan when it comes to rates, because it's really difficult to make your bills of an average or a typical pack and ship store if you have much less than what's on the left. So take a snapshot of this if you want. This is just some recommendations. Please, you know your business plan and what works in your store better than I do. So please understand that this is not specific to you. This is just in very general. But this extra amount area is a place that you can add more. You can do it. You're going to want to do it for all the carriers that you can. For sure, UPS and FedEx. I recommend DHL. And on post office, you can do it on the add-ons too if you want. So, but I would at least do it in the surcharges. So that would be where you could make some extra money. We're going to talk about how that extra money adds up in just a bit. Now let's talk about your packaging rates. And your box company probably sent you recently a notice that says all of your cardboard box or corrugated box is going up by X% or something, because that's what used to happen to me. And they used to do it, honestly, they were getting so they would do it 2 or 3 times a year. And you probably experience the same thing. So make sure that you have marked up your corrugated and your peanuts and bubble wrap handsomely for the holidays. So boxes, that's the cardboard corrugated boxes, typically are average about 5 times your cost. So if it costs you $1, you're typically going to be charging right around $5 for that. If it costs you $2, you're typically going to be charging around $20 for that. There is a limit. So if you buy a 24 cube double wall box and it costs you $8, your customer is not going to spend $40 for that box. They're just not going to. They're going to think you're nuts, and you kind of probably are. So you have to decide at what point you're not going to charge, 4 or 5 times average. But here is the rule of thumb. Usually, the cheaper or smaller the box, the closer to 6 times the cost. The bigger or more expensive the box is for you to purchase, the closer to 2 times. So if I bought a box and it cost me $12, I would probably retail that for $24, $28, somewhere in there. I don't think I could get away with much more than that in a typical store. Now, if you're in a rich area and you can get more, do it. Absolutely do it. But we have to be reasonable here. And most of our stores are not, unfortunately, in a really well-to-do area. So um, but don't underdo these. If you have a 12 cube box and you're selling it for $2.95, well, I thought doubling my cost was enough. No, it's not. This is taking up a lot of space in your store that you pay precious rent on. So this has been the norm in our industry for eons and eons. So please do increase your box prices appropriately. If you're not sure, make a quick trip down to your local FedEx office store or UPS store and look at the prices on the boxes there. Take a discrete picture with your phone and go back to your store and say, if they can do it, I can do it, because they do, and you can. Peanuts and bubble wrap. Peanuts typically about $5.95 per cubic foot is average now. I have anywhere from about $5 up to, I have stores that are charging like $8.95, $9.95. So that's, your area is going to dictate that. But I certainly wouldn't go much under $5.95 at this point. Peanuts are very expensive to ship, very expensive to hold in your store. And by the way, when you're setting up your store, you know those giant bags of peanuts that you have? They're usually either 14 cubic foot bags or 20-foot cubic bags, so they're probably bigger than your mama. Put 2 or 3 of those out in your lobby. And if your lobby is really small, hang them from the ceiling. Do weird things with them. People will come in and it will be an attraction. They'll go, wow, look at all those peanuts. That's so cool. And it becomes a conversation point, and it is a neat thing to have in your store. So store 2 or 3 of them in your lobby, and then always have 2 or 3 in the back. You need to always have some. If you have to suspend them to get them out of your way, then do it. Make sure you don't disobey fire laws. But other than that, do it. And then same thing with bubble wrap. Typically, I see $1.25, $1.50 per square foot. So those are usually terrible, perforated, so you can tear them off at every foot. I typically see this tiny bubble, so the size of a pencil eraser. I typically see those a little bit less, and the fat bubble, the size of your thumbnail, those are typically a little bit more. So maybe $1.15 or $1.10 per square foot for the tiny eraser, maybe $1.40 for the bigger one, or somewhere in that. If you can get more, again, do it. Also, typically on bubble wrap and peanuts, if they buy a lot more, there's usually a discount. And PostalMate has quantity discounts in there. So if you're doing this huge pack job with a big old computer or China set or whatever, and they use, 50 feet of bubble wrap, for heaven's sakes, give them a discount on it, because otherwise, they may not use your services. Don't go crazy with the discount, but, give them a discount on it. No problem with that. And then packing labor. This has been kind of the standard again for 100 years. And the only reason it's standard is because it's easy math. $60 an hour is $1 a minute. And you know that if you're going back and packing something and it takes you 2 or 3 minutes, that you've got $2 or $3 in labor involved there. You can certainly charge more nowadays. Look, this was the rule 10 years ago. And that's when your employees made $6 an hour. I guarantee you're not paying your employees $6 an hour anymore. So it's okay if you increase this. If you want to double it, that's perfectly fine. But just know, don't undercut your labor in packing. It takes time. It takes money to do that. So please charge for your packing. Next thing, how to increase the price of your supplies. Do I have to go in and edit every single one? That's why I don't want to do it. It takes forever. I have 60 different boxes and 3 different bubble wraps and peanuts, and I don't want to have to do each one. No, you can do it all on one page, one single page. It's called the Receive Products page. It's in CashMate under Tools, Receive Products. And all you do is select your department, which is usually packing materials. And then you can look at the last retail, that's your current retail price. So for example, the first one I'm charging $3 for last, okay? And then you can enter your new price. So maybe for that $3 one, maybe I'm going to mark it up to $4 or $3.95. So I enter that on the white retail one, and then you just tab down to the next one. And when you get all of them filled in all the way down, click OK, and it's done. So you can do it all. It takes literally, if you have 50 different items in here, you can have it done in 10 minutes and you're all set. So easy peasy. Rule reminders. Ooh, you know I'm a rules girl. Here we go. If somebody does sleep there or can sleep there, it's a residence. Please, please, please be careful. Just because it has a business name does not make it a business. Shipping to a residence costs you more. You get less of a discount with UPS, FedEx, and DHL when it's going to a residence. And there's a residential fee. So it's a dual threat there. So make sure that you do take care. Also, verify address in PostMate. Let me explain what that does and what that does not do. What Verify Address does in PostMate is uses an indicia service through USPS and checks to see if that address is a legit physical address according to the post office. And it also comes back and it says, according to the post office, they believe this to be commercial or residential. Now, according to the post office, well, who cares about what the post office thinks on commercial and residential? They don't care. I mean, in essence, UPS, FedEx, and DHL do charge you more when it's a residence. The problem is we can't go directly to those sources for that information. So post office is the best information we have, but it's not going to be 100%, and it's not going to agree with the carrier in every time. And no, we're not going to refund you money because the post office said it was one and it wasn't. UPS said it was a different. That's up to you. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. If you're suspicious that it's a residence or somebody sleeps there, it's up to you to change that to residential. And if you're unsure and want to change it to residential, you certainly can. Once it's delivered, the carrier really will reduce your money or increase your money, your bill, reduce your bill or increase your bill based on what the actual delivery is. And it is the delivering driver for UPS, FedEx, and DHL that gets to determine if it's a residence or a commercial address. And it gets real funny in some areas. So again, going back to my newbies webinar, I teach this all the time, but sometimes it's both, and you have to make that determination. So if you're sending it to Grandma Suzanne, and Grandma Suzanne lives in a nursing home, that's a residence. But if you're sending business correspondence to the office manager at the nursing home, that's a business. But it would behoove you to say office manager or office business or something along those lines to get that commercial rate. And if you're in doubt, just check mark residential, and then you're covered. Another rule. Article not in standard container. So first of all, measure every container. Longest length, longest width, tallest height. So if it's in a bag, again, if it's a teddy bear in a bag, you're going to measure it out. It's going to be 12 inches long, 9 inches wide, and up to the nose of the teddy bear, which is sticking up 6 inches high. Even though the foot is only 2 inches high, that nose is 6 inches high. So 6 is the number you use. Never ever, by the way, and you could round up on these, never ever use the dimensions written on the bottom of the box. Those are the wrong dimensions. Those are the interior dimensions. You will get dinged a whole bunch of times if you use those dimensions. If you catch your employee doing it, smack them on the hand. Now, don't smack them on the hand. You'll get in a lawsuit. But make sure that you tell them not to do that. And folks, pet peeve of mine, never correct your employee in front of your customer, ever. That makes you look so bad. Doesn't make them look bad, makes you look bad as a manager. Do it discreetly, behind the scenes, in a way that's not offensive to your employee and that your customers can't hear. If your employee makes a mistake and you don't catch it, that's on you because you're the owner. It's your job to train them properly. So don't correct your employee. You can say politely to your employee, if you don't mind, I'm going to take over this one. Would you go in the back and do something? And you can let them know ahead of time. If I barge in, it's because I see something wrong and I don't want to call you out in front of a customer. I don't want to make you feel bad. I don't want you to, make it look like you're doing wrong. But I will have to do that on occasion. And make sure you have that agreement with your employees ahead of time so that there's no hurt feelings and so you don't look bad in front of your customer. An article not in standard container means anything that's not in a cardboard container by by definition. Now, apparently, padded bags are still okay. Tyvek bags, maybe. Again, this is, I spoke just before the webinar started. I wish the carriers would come out and say, this is our definition, but they don't. So we're left to kind of guess. And the way we guess is by you guys telling me, oh, I got charged an additional handling for it being in a bag. Well, now I'm going to have to teach differently, right? So right now we're seeing, for the most part, padded envelopes get through fine without additional handling. Tyvek bags, I'm not so sure about. Maybe, but that's a judgment call you're going to have to make. But typical things that are not in a standard, you do not, everything you ship does not have to be in a box. You can ship a suitcase, for example. The suitcase is the container. The suitcase is not insurable. If the wheels fall off or the handles falls off, too bad. No claim can be made. But you're going to get hit with an additional handling charge. And additional handling is a lot. It's like 25 bucks a pop from UPS and FedEx. So make sure that as much as you can, things are in a cardboard container. So things that you can ship that are not: bucket, pail, wooden crate, metal toolbox, Rubbermaid container, suitcase, round tube. A round tube is not a standard container. If you send round tube, you should only send it post office. And even then, there's an additional fee. It's at like a $4 fee. So make sure that you get rid of, if you sell round tubes in your store, once you sell out of them, never order them again. Get triangle tubes or rectangle tubes, but not round tubes, because it costs you an arm and a leg in additional fees. Okay, never sell cubic rates for post office. If you sell this, you're going to lose money. Again, you can remove this service from your screen so you're not tempted. You can change it from your screen. You can hide it on another tab. You will, it is available to you, but to understand why you should never sell this, please watch the webinar on cubic rates for details. I'm not going to go into it more than that, but just know that. I go through and help stores all the time, and it crushes my heart when I see a newer store that, and they've been selling cubic rate left and right because the price is so cheap. And it breaks my heart because they're just leaving so much money on the table. So please understand, there's a reason I'm telling you why you shouldn't be selling cubic rate. Go watch that webinar. Okay, avoid the extra fees. So you're going to have at least once during this holiday season, somebody bring in a ridiculously large box, and you're going to measure it. And when you measure it, and you enter the dimensions in PostalMate, you maybe won't get any rates because it's too big. And you really want to ship this because you can see that it's a high dollar item. It's going all the way clear across the country, wherever that is for you. And they want it there. And you know, and it's a whole bunch of Christmas packages for a huge family all at once. And they don't want to take them on the plane. So they're sending them in one big box. So you lie to PostalMate and you say, oh, it's not 50, it's 48, and it's not 28, it's 26, and it's not 39, it's 35, just to get the rates. And so then the rate comes up on the screen and you punch the buttons and you send it and you get a label. Here's the bad news. The carrier will measure it. When they measure it, it will get assessed something called an unauthorized oversized charge. That's when you send a package and they accept it, but it is larger than they are authorized by law to take. So this is actually breaking federal law because they're restricted by law on what sizes they can take. So for breaking the law, now mind you, in the past, this fee was, in 2015, this fee was $57.50 from UPS and FedEx, that surcharge fee. The surcharge fee today, and you can always take a picture of if you, well, let me come back to that. I'm going to backtrack just a minute. I have the camera on here to remind me that if you have a box that's close to the dimensions or seems really big, take a picture of you taking the dimensions on each one so that if the carrier says, it wasn't 51, it was 54, we measured it, you can say, no, I measured it and I took a picture of me measuring it. And then you'll win that argument every time. So having said that, the charge, like I said, was $57.50 way back in 2015. 9 years later, that surcharge is $1,250 plus fuel surcharge. So if fuel surcharge applies, you're looking at a $1,400 surcharge. and they will take the money from your account, and you cannot win this one. Without pictures, you cannot win this one. So make sure that you don't ever lie to PostalMate on the size. Don't lie. It's not worth it. By the way, if it's all those Christmas packages in there, offer to rebox it. Say, I can't take this because it's a $1,250 surcharge because it's too big to go, but I can break it down, and for an extra, it'll probably, $40 in packing. We can get you into 2 boxes, and they'll go just fine. And then you're good. Okay. This is just kind of a side note. You have a lot of used boxes. Most of them have a smiley face that will come in during the holiday season. But I always had this posted in my store because somebody would bring in a used box and have something expensive in it. And you can offer to rebox it in a new box, but your customer's going to say, no, it's fine, it's fine in that box. And just say, well, just so you understand, the carriers tell us that 60% of the integrity of the box is used in the first shipment, and they can deny a claim based on being in a used box. I'm not in it to make more money on you. If you're okay with that, knowing it's posted on my wall here and that we've had this conversation, I'm fine in sending it. But my recommendation is to rebox it. Now, in most places that works fine. If you live in a litigious place, California, I'm talking to you, you will lose that argument because the courts generally will side with your customer and say, you're the professional, you knew that was at risk, you shouldn't have sent it. But in most places, you would get away with that. So you make the judgment call for how you want to do it in your store. Almost done, guys. All right. So before I get to the new feature, which I will show you in PostalMate in just a moment, we'll actually go to PostalMate. This is my once a year opportunity that I take every single year. And it's especially poignant this year with all the changes we've had in our own internal company. Having fairly newly been required by Maersk and going through the ventures of corporate world, which I don't wish upon anybody. This is my opportunity. I get to know you through calls, through regional events, and through these webinars. And this is my opportunity to twofold, to thank you for being our customer and on behalf of our company, and tell you that we love you. This pool of our customers is very small. It's not like we can sell this software to everybody in the world. You have to be a pack and ship store to get use of this, and you have to usually have an authorized account by the carriers, and the carriers limit that. That means if I had all of them outside of the UPS store, I'd have about 4,000 customers or so, and I have 3,500 plus. So I have most of the industry, and we get to know you. I know who you are. I know where your store is. I know that you have more than one store or only one store. And you think I don't, but I watch every single day that support queue and what's going on in that. And we get to know you. We get to know, and we have losses, and we have people who've lost loved ones, lost their spouse or partner, their kids. Kids graduate, all these things. I have a wonderful customer who I love dearly, one of my favorite customer. Every year he sends me pecans because his family in Georgia has a pecan farm. And I wait anxiously every year for these delicious, there's nothing like fresh sweet pecans. They're amazing if you ever have the chance to get them. But we really value you as individuals because we are a close, very close community, and our support team gets to know you. So specifically from our company, we thank you and we love you. But now for me, this venture of being on webinars is fun, exciting. It was nerve-wracking and scary at first, and occasionally there's the technical glitch that makes my life crazy. But I want you to know that I truly appreciate you. I love you, and we are here to help you in any way we can. We're not going to do everything for you because there's things you got to do on your own, but we are here for you. And I hope that you feel that at this time of year. We hope you have a very successful holiday season, regardless of your religion. This has nothing to do with your religion. This has to do with your business. Decorate, enjoy the season, make it merry, make it your customers feel comfortable, and then you do you, whatever, however you celebrate the season, or if you don't celebrate the season, that's fine. You do you. But in business, we celebrate the season. And from me personally to you, Merry Christmas. I hope you take care and have a wonderful holiday season. Now we're going to get to the good stuff. Um, we have connected services to PostalMate and through APIs or some kind of connections to these 22 connections. Plus, there's others we didn't include, including email notification and credit card servers. So these are our main connectivity that we had. Most of these have been, so a few of them are new, but for the most part, these have been around and we've connected to them for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. But occasionally, and you experts that have been around for a long time know that one or more of them goes down. And always during the holiday season, somebody has to go down, sometimes more than once, and it's a pain in the neck. But if you've been with us very long, you know that this does happen. For example, a common one is indicia postage purchase. I don't know why they have problems with it on occasion, but they do. And all of a sudden you can't buy postage or it goes wonky. And so you freak out and you call us because you're like, is it just me? Now here's the problem when you call us. I got 3,500 customers and they all find out about the issue at the same time and they all call us. And so we get flooded and our phone systems go down and we have 3,900, because everybody calls twice, voicemails that we don't have time to listen to. We still only have 12 support members. So it doesn't grow just because Indicia had an outage or something. And we can't get to them. So we can't give you a call back. And so you don't know. And okay, here's the thing, especially during the holidays, you need to know, is it just you? Do you need to call support or is it a system-wide issue? And so we have a solution for that. It's not elegant. We're going to refine it and make it better, but for now, it's going to work fantastic for the holidays. In PostalMate, in version 14.2.2, up at the top under Help, and you have to be on the main screen to see it, there's a new area called System Status. And this is going to take you to a link that's going to tell you if everything is operational. All right. So once you update to 14.2.2, I want you to go here. Now, if you're in the middle of a shipment, you have to back out of it and get to the main screen of PostMate. That's a refinement I'm going to ask our support or our development team to work on so you can do this, get to the screen no matter where you're at. Because if you can't get a label, you're wondering again, is it just you? But it's going to show you, and then you can scroll down and see if there's any issues. All issues are green right now. Everything's functioning. And it even says at the bottom, if you're experiencing issues not shown here, please email us. Now, if you do run into an issue here, it's possible that you were one of the first people to find it. Okay, it may not be listed here yet. We have a group of us that are authorized to come in here and we will change it. We'll make it yellow if we're seeing some outages. We'll make it red if we're seeing significant outages in any of these areas. And we'll put in some notes like we're investigating, we're reaching out to UPS, we're, whatever it is, we'll put in some notes when we can and tell you what information. You can come back to this and see if there's any changes. But when you come back, this is really important. When you come back, you have to refresh it by either clicking the little circly thing up here or clicking F5 on your keyboard. Because when you come back, if you don't do that, this is saved in your computer cache and it will just reflect the same thing. So make sure that you recycle it or refresh it and it will refresh the status for you. So this is there for you. Use it through the holidays. I guarantee at least once some carrier or something will go down and you deserve to know what it is, what the status is, and if we're on it. And I want you to be able to look at that without having to wait for 3 hours for a phone call or an email from us. So that is our gift to you for the holiday season. I hope that it gives you more security. We did put in redundant systems. It was in 14.2.1 redundant systems, so a backup to the backup. So we don't expect any outages on our behalf, but on all those others, could UPS shipping or could FedEx HAL be down or could Indicia address validation be down? Yes, any of these could be down and you deserve to know as soon as we find out about it. So that's what this purpose is. This will probably get longer as we add more things, but I want you to have that at your fingertips so you don't freak out and think that it's you. Okay, I'm going to get to the questions now. I had this really, 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 really cute. Let's see if I can do this. Ah, more will be added. Type in your questions if you have some. I'll try to get through them. We did have 1,100 and change signed up for this webinar, so I don't know if I'll be able to get through all the questions, but I'll try to get to some. I will not be able to take any questions later on today or this week. I am flying to a business meeting right after this webinar, so you should email to support@pcsynergy.com if you have additional questions. And then we'll see you in 2025. So I'm going to close out of the PowerPoint, go to PostalMate in case you have any questions. We did add a feature that did speed up the spinning wheel just a little bit. It's not significant, but it was as much as we could do safely before the holidays. We did see a slight improvement. I will just address that. You should be seeing that spinning wheel because it's going for each of your rates, and then it's also going for each of your online commitments for each of the services you're going to display. For standard shipments, generic shipments, it should be taking between 3 and 8 seconds. If it's taking longer than 8 seconds consistently, you have a different issue. It's not a software issue. You have a different issue going on. It's an antivirus, a firewall, a modem, a cabling, an internet, an old computer. It's something else going on. We don't know what that something else is, but I can tell you that your software is not different than the next person's software. And if it takes him 3 to 8 seconds, it should take you 3 to 8 seconds. So please understand that. We will try to work through and figure it out with you and give you some ideas on that. But the software is not written differently for you than somebody else. Okay, I'm gonna drag my little thing over here. Oh, no. Drag it bigger, make it bigger so I can read some of these questions. Okay. I'm going up to the top here. Can you still use PhotoZoomer as a drop-off computer? Yes, you can. How do I know what is the limited for the insurance? You need to check the service guide for each carrier. So FedEx, UPS, and DHL have service guides, and that's where those are going to be. FedEx and UPS, it's really easy to find. Just go type in Google 2024 FedEx service guide, and then look at the back pages. We were able to use the stamp code, but now it doesn't work. With net stamps, I have no idea, Bob. That almost might be a indicia thing. You can try our support team first, but I don't think we have any information on that. Yeah, okay. I like that, Mike. USPS motto. We meant well. That was good. How do you enter the time frames next to USPS? That was on that page. Hopefully you took a snapshot of that, like I suggested. All right. When we say time in transit is not guaranteed, is it just UPS we're talking about? Time in transit is not guaranteed for all carriers on most shipments. So domestic air for UPS and FedEx, they are still guaranteeing some, but they will stop doing that on about December 12th. Please read the information. They are emailing you information on this. Please read it. I will also tell you, I'll give a shout out to our friends over at Refund Retriever. I believe it's refundretriever.com. They have the best information on this stuff, the best information on that stuff. Okay. Thank you. Thanksgiving was the same day in 2019 as this year. How can we remove the FedEx One Rate option? You absolutely can. What are the restrictions on firearms and alcohol shipping for UPS and FedEx? The answer is no. No for alcohol, and for firearms, you can only ship to a licensed firearm dealer in the United States. That's it. And there's even going to be certain other restrictions, so be very, very careful. Can you clarify if we can use FedEx flat rate, which is one rate, for FedEx envelopes? Yes, but you want to mark those up really well if you're going to use the one rate, so you're not losing money on those. No, Lori. That's why we have the recording. 14.2. Okay, so this person says 14.2 will not print the custom stocks. It pops up and it wants to ship like 11, 12 pages. That's because you don't have should be because your default report printer is not selected in PostalMate. So it's trying to print to your stupid little label printer. So in PostalMate, we're going to go to Tools, PostalMate Settings, and it's in a strange place. That's why I'm going there. And it's going to be Station Settings right here, make sure that your report printer is selected for that. Can you ship credit cards, debit cards, international? You should not. They're not insurable, and they could get lost. So the answer is they shouldn't. You should not. No, you cannot. You cannot ship a prescription drug labeled to the recipient international. And domestically, you cannot send prescriptions through post office at all, or domestic or international. What about Christmas gift as Christmas candy chocolate? So some countries will not accept Christmas chocolate or candy. So that's a country by country. Um, so problem with shipping to Canada, we specify gift under $40. Now UPS is trying to collect that. Um, they're trying to collect duties and taxes on that. So the gift exemption for most countries has kind of disappeared. So that is a real truth there. So there might be duties and taxes on that. The old rules of gift exemptions are pretty much gone. Can we send new clothing to Mexico? Generally, yes. Bear in mind that Mexico does not like anything made in China. So it's like their arch enemies. So if you list China as the country of manufacture, it could encounter problems. Uh, yeah, Al, I don't have an answer for you on that. Yeah, so this person sends some antiques. Do I use what they paid for? And what about insurance? Is it considered a gift or a present? If somebody is purchasing it overseas, it's not a gift. It's a purchase. The value for customs and duty would be the value they paid for it. The value for insurance would be the value they paid for it, but there still might be restrictions by your insurance provider. So you going to have to work with them. They may, just because it's worth $10,000 to the receiver, your insurance company may not cover it. By the way, if you use alternate insurance, this is really important. If you use alternate insurance, there is something real called underinsured. And that is, let's say I'm sending a vase and the vase is worth $5,000. And so I put $5,000 in and my customer says, ooh, that's too much. Can we insure it for less? And you go, oh, yeah, we'll insure it for $2,000. Yeah, okay, I'll do that. And you insure it for $2,000. If that vase gets broken or lost, your alternate insurance, this is not carrier insurance, this is alternate insurance. Your alternate insurance is only responsible for $1,000 of coverage, even though you insured it for $2,000. You're responsible for that other $1,000. That's called underinsuring an item. So if it's worth $5,000, you insure it for $2,000 through an alternate company and it gets broken, the insurance company will pay $1,000. You have to pay the other $1,000. Don't do it. Don't underinsure things if you use an alternate insurance. www.dct.dhl.com, or just scrap the www part. Just put dct.dhl.com and it comes up ugly and yellow. I'll show you. Let's see if we can go there. See if I'm wrong. dct.dhl.com. There it is, ugly and yellow. Told you. All right. Andrea, you're way undercharging for cardboard boxes at 3 times. Way, 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 way. Okay, sometimes you're writing the questions that are way too long for me to read. No, Rich. Triangle tubes are entered as triangle tubes. So there's the length 36 and one side is going to be, I mean, each side on the triangle, because it is a, oh, I'm going to get this wrong. I don't remember my geometry days, an absolute triangle, which is a perfect triangle. So each side of those 3 is going to be the same. So it doesn't matter which one you enter because it's all the same. So maybe 3 and 3 and 3. So it would be 36 by 3 and 3. That's how you would do that. Okay, we will be sending out this as a recording later. So when you're printing the customs forms and the customer signs it, In a pinch, can your store sign it? Yeah, probably. Um, you can always put on on your disclaimer on your shipping receipt, I authorize the store to sign on my behalf for customs forms. You know, do I have a good phone number of Indicia to remove gap? No, I don't. I'm in the middle of a webinar and I have no phone numbers at my fingertips. Sorry. Media mail is limited to educational materials or just no personalization? No, it is limited specifically to educational materials. Now, will the post office know if that book is an educational material or not? No, but that's what it says in the mail manual, domestic mail manual. Working on it. Let's see. You mentioned a second computer for the holidays. Doesn't that require a second PostalMate subscription? Great question, Kathy. And no, it does not. As long as you are using the second computer for the same PostalMate store, the same accounts, and you're networking them, you can have up to 6 workstations using PostalMate for one location. If you have a different location, that requires a different subscription for PostalMate. We used to charge extra for that. We stopped that about 20 years ago. All right. Yes, Annette. All right. And I think we're getting to the end. If we didn't get to your question and you still have it, please email it to support. If it requires me specifically, it may be next week before I get back to you, but most of our team and support can answer most of these general questions. So I want to thank you. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving and holiday season. Get ready. Take those pep pills. Okay, don't take pep pills, but have lots of coffee at your disposal or Diet Coke, which is my weapon of choice here, and have a super duper holiday season. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.